Hello. Wow. It's been a second. It's been a while. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it feels so surreal to be back recording an episode for any and all to listen to. These past, let's see, April, May, and June, and almost all of July now. So April, May, June, July, 4 months have been the craziest 4 months of my entire life. And for those of you who know me, I have definitely had a pretty crazy life. So I really don't say that lightly at all. And yeah, I actually wanted to take this podcast to let you know where the hell I've been and what I've been up to. In the grand scheme of things, 4 months is not a lot of time, but to me, it feels like this is a pretty good sense of closure, and an invitation to step into a bit of a new way of being for myself, just for recording this podcast. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. What have I been up to these past 4 months? To tell you the truth, I wasn't going to record this episode at all. I feel like I know less than ever before in some ways. And in other ways, I feel like I've learned things that I don't know how I never saw them. I wasn't going to record this podcast, and the reason that I changed my mind is because I was outside talking to my neighbor last night, and we were just talking, and I was telling him about how I feel like the things that I've been learning recently, I really want to share, but I feel like I have so little together that I feel like I really have no place to be sharing, that I feel like I have no place to be telling you guys about principles that I believe in if sometimes I feel like I don't embody these principles. And what he said to me is that, well, maybe people don't need people who have it together. Maybe people need people who are real. And I was like, wow, that really, really, really hits deep. So for the next however many minutes, I am just going to speak straight from the heart. And yeah, feel free to listen along. So the last podcast episode I recorded was, I think it was the last week of March, and it was the first week of March that I was invited to go on a retreat in Costa Rica with 14 strangers who I had never met in my entire life. Hey guys, just Future Jack here. Just wanted to butt in real quick. I meant first week of April. I went to Costa Rica the first week of April. And I would say my state of being at this time was I was feeling very lost, very confused. I graduated from college last spring, and for the past year, I've been really not sure about what I want to do. I worked in Hawaii for a while. I was working on a dock, sending people out on stand-up paddleboards down this beautiful river. I was making a lot of money in tips, so I was working 3 days a week, and on the surface, everything was perfect. But deeper within, I just felt something was horribly off. And I couldn't really describe it. I spent so much time crying. I really didn't know what was wrong. And eventually I just decided that the best thing for me was to come home. And I was home for a little bit, and I came home, and I kind of thought that, my dream has always been to tell stories. It's always been to share my perspective with you. I mean, I guess I'm still learning what it is, but I knew that I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something about sharing love and joy with other humans, specifically in the form of content, in the form of making media. And so I came home and I did a 30-day challenge, which was following my bliss every single day for 30 days. That proved to be incredibly difficult. I felt super burnt out. I felt like I was just putting so much pressure on myself. It just felt like too much. And so then I decided to, give up the grinding content and just work a normal job for a while. And so I was working as a server's assistant at this restaurant in downtown Cincinnati called Colette. And I met some very beautiful human beings there, including my boy Luke. Luke, if you're listening to this, I fucking love you, bro. And after working there for a couple weeks, I had a pretty the onset of a pretty intense panic attack at work. And I went home that day. Instead of kind of subduing to the panic, I listened to where I felt the anxiety was coming from. And again, I just felt like I was horribly in the wrong place. And fast forwarding a little bit, I had also had the first panic attack, or sorry, rewinding a little bit. I had also had a really bad panic attack a year ago right now. So last summer. And so yeah, this onset of a panic attack at work was probably the most serious panic attack that I had had since the one I had the summer before. And yeah, I just felt again like I was really in the wrong place. So I decided to quit. And this was at the very end of February. So all of March, I was thinking about getting a new job, and I was just kind of like, there's really no point, because I'm about to go to Costa Rica for 10 days. I think I'll just take a month and kind of slow down again, before going off and getting another job, and see if I can just figure out why I've been feeling so much anxiety, why I had this latent anxiety still left over from my panic attack over the summer, why I felt anxiety at work, why was I feeling so anxious. And I had also experienced in those months, leading up to March, just a lot of feelings of isolation and despair and loneliness and just so much pain. Yeah, and this is all kind of going to be necessary for what happened in Costa Rica. My uncle also passed away in late November, which was incredibly heart-opening. It was incredibly sad. It was very unexpected. And yeah, I gave the eulogy at his funeral, and I was just bawling, crying in front of my whole family, which I'd never done before. So yeah, anyway, to kind of sum up how those months were for me, leading up to Costa Rica, I would say it was plagued maybe is the wrong word. It was characterized by a lot of confusion, a lot of emotions that I didn't know how to deal with. It seemed like there was a lot of repressed anxiety, a lot of repressed pain that was all just coming to the surface. And some days that manifested itself as me just bawling, crying. Some days that manifested itself as life just feeling numb. Like I was just dissociated from the world. It felt like I wasn't really connected to anything. I was just in my head all day. Sometimes it took the form of pure joy. Like crying feels amazing. It feels so heavenly. And to cry these emotions out, I felt like it felt more real. It felt like I was really being myself. But I still didn't really know what to do with all of this. And leading up to Costa Rica, I kind of felt like my whole life I had not actually been. I actually made a reel about this on Instagram if any of you guys saw it, but I made a reel about how I felt like my whole life that I was never actually being myself, that I had just become the person that I thought other people would love, the person that I thought other people needed. And this was my way of existing in this world that can be very judgmental and very harsh. And yeah, I was just thinking, if I was surrounded by people who loved me unconditionally, just felt real love, that naturally I would just grow into the person that I've always been designed to be. And that's where all these other sources of confusion about what am I going to do to make money? How am I going to move out of my mom's house? How am I going to be independent and support myself? This had been a big weight on my shoulders for all of these months, just being very unsure. And I kind of thought like maybe I've been approaching it wrong. Maybe the idea is not to focus all my energy on what I'm doing for the world, but instead focus all my energy on surrounding myself with people who love me. And then naturally I'll just be the person that I've always been designed to be. And that person will just naturally add value to society. And in return, we'll get value. Because I really do believe that every single one of us is so needed in this world. I think every single one of us has superpowers. And I think that most of the time we betray this in the name of belonging in the world. It's like we have to choose between being our true self or belonging to this world. And I found myself in the middle of that paradigm. And it's like I'd been forcing myself to make money, and it wasn't coming from this genuine place of joy. the joy that comes from sharing one's authentic truth, one's authentic light that no one will ever be able to steal or recreate or outcompete, or because there's never going to be anyone else like us. And so I was like, wow, I think that's true. I think I should focus my energy on surrounding myself with people who love me. So then I went down to Costa Rica, and yeah, I really was excited about this trip. I remember feeling in my heart when I got invited in early November, I was like, wow, this actually feels really exciting when I think about it. So I'm just going to follow it. I have nothing planned this year. I might as well just go check it out. And so I did. And it was with other people. I posted on TikTok for a while about spirituality. I still messed around with it some this past year, about consciousness and spirituality, like I was saying. And these were other creators who were invited to go on this retreat, all kind of from the same sphere. And I figured out later that they were specifically inviting people that they felt had a very grounded energy. And I bring that up because I went to the retreat and I was just met with some of the most grounded, loving human beings that I've ever met in my entire life. Yeah, I mean, the whole retreat, maybe I'll have to do another podcast explaining the entire retreat because it was just so crazy. But to make a long story very short, within a few days, I felt like this was my family. We got along together in ways that were very eerie. It was suspicious just how well we meshed together. And I think that process was also enhanced because everyone came in with a really open mind and open heart. We went through a lot of activities together. We went to the beach together. We went to a waterfall together. And a lot of our days were centered around each person in the group sharing different things, different workshops. And there were also workshops that no one in the group hosted, but the retreat's hosts, Bianca and Letha, invited other shamanic people in, for lack of a better word, who were taking us through these very intense emotional exercises. One was all about releasing and honoring anger and being witnessed in it. Oh my gosh, I totally remember every single one of us. We stood we were in this little cabana, and it overlooked just beautiful jungle, and each person took a turn going to the front of the little cabana and just screaming everything that they were angry about to the rainforest, while the rest of the group sat in a half circle facing that person, just holding space for them and witnessing them. And that was one of the most powerful things I've ever been through. I was bawling my eyes out, just crying, witnessing everything that people carry with them. And I'd never really viewed anger in this way because I'd always thought of anger as something that kind of scares me. I don't want to be angry because I feel like anger is when I attack people or when I hurt other people. But India, our shaman, said that anger is sacred, it's divine, and that if it's expressed in healthy ways, it needs to be expressed in healthy ways. And so we did. We yelled it out and we moved our body to get it out. And man, this was one of the most special experiences that I've ever gone through. And so we were super vulnerable, and we did a workshop the next day that was all about receiving love that my beautiful friend Michaela hosted, where people laid down in the middle of a little rectangle. Excuse me. And in the middle of this little rectangle, everybody went around and took turns. Well, actually not took turns. We all put our hand on the person in the middle, if they gave us permission, wherever we felt called to put our hand. And we just all went around while that person laid in the middle and closed their eyes. And we just said all the things that we love about this person. And by this time, this was about halfway into the retreat. So we had all taken a lot of time to get to know each other. We had been very vulnerable. You know, we were sharing every meal together. We were doing these trips together. We were all spending a lot of time in conversation, just walking around the retreat center. We had all gotten to know each other really, really well. It's kind of like we skipped all the superficialness and we just went straight to the core of how are you really doing? How do you really feel about your life? And we also took a ton of time to be goofy. We were doing lots of dancing, listening to music and swimming. And yeah, it just felt very natural and organic. And it also helped that, I mean, we were in such a freaking beautiful place. We were in Costa Rica at this beautiful retreat center, Selva Armonia. And yeah, we would just talk so long at night and look up at the stars and about life and existence and about love and our dreams. And it was just so fun. So yeah, when we were doing this receiving love workshop, I remember when I was doing it, I felt so seen. Just people literally saying all the things that they love about me. And yeah, I'm literally getting emotional thinking about it because I feel like my entire life I have had a really, really hard time allowing people to love me. It's really easy for me to love other people, but there's something about letting other people in that really scares me. And it was just so beautiful that in this moment, all I had to do was just receive, was let all these people love me. And they were all saying, we just want to love you. We just want to love you. We just want to love you. And I was like, okay, like do it. And they were just like, you have the biggest heart. You're such a divine masculine male. And as a spiritual guy, I'm like, let's go. And all these girls that I'm with are just beautiful. And the guys that I was with too were just so, brothers for life, Andrew and IK. And so just receiving all of these compliments, like, you have such a big heart. I love how goofy you are. I love how gentle you are. I love when you speak. I love your voice. I love your body. I love your hair. I mean, just all these things that they were saying that they love about me so much. And they were also saying, you don't need to put your walls up anymore. You don't need to put your walls up anymore. And I was just crying and crying and crying with the biggest smile on my face. Because I just felt like I was home. I felt like I had never really received love in this way before. In such a pure, all I have to do is receive. That's it. That's all I have to do. And that's not to say I don't have other people in my life who I feel so much love from, because I do. But this was a very unique experience in its own way. Especially just given the background of us already being so incredibly vulnerable. I felt like I was seen in a way that perhaps I haven't been seen in years. Because I think ever since my mom and my stepdad have gotten divorced when I was 13, and my stepbrothers no longer became my stepbrothers anymore. It was also at that time that my dad started a new job. He started trying to build FC Cincinnati, the soccer team, which is an MLS team now. And so kind of all at once, I had two really big things happen. I was also going into high school, and a lot of my elementary school friends, my sense of community was shifting. But so I think I felt very disconnected from my family during that time in my life, because we were just all really hurting and going through new things. And it was just, I bring that up because I felt like I had not experienced that sense of feeling like I was at home, like feeling like I was really unconditionally loved since our family split. My mom and my stepdad's family split. And that just like really, really, really broke me, like thinking about that in Costa Rica. And I also just thought about everybody back home, how I think that all of us have been deprived of a true unconditional love that is our birthright. It's our birthright, and it's such a gift to be loved. But on the flip side, what I didn't realize is that it's a gift when I allow other people to love me. I'm going to say that again. It is a gift when I allow other people to love me. When they love me in a way they're loving themselves, I'm reflecting back at them attributes about themselves that maybe are difficult for them to love. Or maybe I'm reflecting back at attributes about them that they love. And I'm just mirroring like, yeah, isn't it fun that you're goofy too? Isn't it fun that you're curious too? But then also, don't you also know what it feels like to be closed off, to feel terrified of being vulnerable, to feel like you're not attractive, like you're not beautiful. And it's a gift when I allow other people to love me in that place, because that's an invitation for them to give themselves the same compassion. And yeah, so I came back from Costa Rica just feeling so, my heart, it was like it was just blown wide open. Like to a shocking extent, it was blown wide open. And yeah, I just deeply, deeply spiritual experience. I mean, the amount of time that I spent in tears and in joy on that retreat is shocking. Absolutely shocking. And yeah, so I came back home just thrown back into my life, and I just couldn't look at anything the same. I couldn't look at my ambitions about making videos, my ambitions about having a podcast, nothing. I felt like nothing I could look at in the same way anymore, because I had experienced this love that was so visceral. Like I hadn't cried this hard in my entire life, probably since I was a baby. It was so emotional. And just that people love me and see me in these tears and be like, we just love you. Like, we just love you so much. I felt so moved. And shout out to Bianca and Letha for hosting such an amazing retreat and inviting us all to be so vulnerable. But yeah, when I came back home, I think I was really, like I was saying, confronted with the stark contrast to what I had experienced in Costa Rica. For lack of a better idea, it was literally like I was living in two different worlds. One of these worlds was a world where our pain is a vehicle for us to connect more deeply with each other, where we don't need to feel shame about our pain, because our pain is an invitation to know ourselves more deeply and even more beautifully to connect more deeply with each other. And I felt like coming back home, we all were carrying so much pain. I would look around at everyone I saw, and I would look deeply into their eyes, everyone I looked at, and for some reason, I just saw the pain that so many people carry. I mean, all of us are carrying pain. And when I would look into their eyes, I would see it. And there were also times, because I was so sensitive, that I would look at humans and be ecstatic, just so much joy and so much love. Like, oh my God, I love you so much. I love you so much. I remember coming home, looking at my mom and just crying, and like, we had an amazing conversation, and I just felt so much love and compassion for her. But I felt so much pain too. Just knowing how much pain every single one of us human beings is in. And I felt like every single human is, not every single one, but so many of us are just dimming our light to belong. It's like we're given the choice, either be your true self or belong in this world. And we all choose to belong in this world because we just want to be loved so badly. And for whatever reason, we think that it's just hard. It's hard to be our vulnerable self in a world that can be so judgmental. And so I think all of us choose, instead, to be our vulnerable self, to be the person that will be attacked the least, that other people will love, just to belong in this world. And to me, it's so sad, but it's also a beautiful thing, because we humans, we just all want to be loved so badly. We just all want to be loved so badly. It's like on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The first need is the need to survive, and then is the need to belong, is right above that, and then is the need to love oneself. And so we really can't actually meet our need to love ourselves until we have a sense of belonging in this world. And so if choosing between the choice of either belong in this world or love yourself, we'll choose to belong every single time. And I think that's why so many people don't love themselves. It's because they're not being themselves. Because they feel like they don't have a choice. Because if they are themselves, they'll be judged. They won't be allowed to feel this way. And they've never really been reminded by another human being of the miracle that is their existence, of just how insanely beautiful it is that you're alive and that you're here and that we need you. We need you. You as you really are. And yeah, coming back into this world, it was traumatic in this way, just with the stark contrasts. And I don't really know how else to put it except for that, trying to really convey to you guys just how much love I felt in Costa Rica and then coming back into this world. And what I decided to do after feeling, I had a lot of panic attacks coming back. I had a lot of, psychotic episodes, for lack of a better word, where I just felt like I wasn't even living in this world because I felt like it was just so hard to look at that I just dissociated from it entirely. And I was being confused. What is actually real? What is actually going on? Why are we really here? I feel like everyone's performing. I feel like I'm living in this, what's that one movie with Jim Carrey? It's The Truman Show, where I'm like, oh my God, like, are we all faking it? Like, are we all performing? And I'm starting to realize, months down the road now, that I felt like this was really about me just noticing how everybody, well, it's like I've been saying, everybody just has their hearts closed off. And so me feeling like I'm living in a superficial world, I don't think is not true. I think it's the truth. And I don't think that has to be sad either. In fact, it is the sadness of living in this world that gives me a lot of hope, because I don't think that anybody wants it to be this way. I just think that we don't really know how else it can be. I think that it's like, well, how else will we do it? Like, of course we're going to, talk about superficial stuff. Of course, I'm not going to cry in front of a ton of people. Of course, I'm not going to tell people that I have these weird sexual desires, or that I, hurt this person so badly and I should have never done that, or that I feel deeply ashamed of my stomach. Like, of course I'm not going to tell people that. Like, they're just going to judge me. They're going to make fun of me. Yeah. And I think, honestly, at the end of the day, I think we all know what it's like to live in our heart. And I think a lot of us, it's not really a priority in our culture and in our world. It's not seen as the number one priority to really live from the heart. It's seen as the number one priority to contribute to society, which to me is so ironic, because I feel like the biggest contribution we can give to society is opening up our heart, which is what I'm trying to do right now. So, we take those. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. So anyway, I felt a lot of confusion and anger. I went to a Reiki master, my friend Julie, and for those of you who don't know what Reiki is, it's basically just energy work. Like, every single one of us has energy that flows through our body. And so there was a lot of energy work after Costa Rica and coming back. Long story short, my energetic field, my friend Julie said, was blown wide open. And I needed to repair it a little bit, because I was feeling everything so deeply. It was like I was taking on other people's pain that I didn't really need to. So anyway, that's just a fancy way for describing how incredibly open I was at this point, and just how deeply I was feeling everything. And so she did this work on me, and it's been toned down since then. And like, feeling other people's energy less, but feeling my own still just as deeply, which has been nice, because I feel like our ability to feel is such an amazing gift, even when it sucks so much. So anyway, I basically decided during this time, I came back, and my parents right away were like, hey, you said you were going to get a job when you came back from Costa Rica. What do you want to do? And my mom was a lot more understanding, because I told her everything that happened in Costa Rica, and I was crying when I told her, and like, just talking about how amazing it was and how much shocking it was. And so she was holding a ton of space for me, and I'm so freaking grateful for that. Mom, if you're listening to this, I love you so much. And my dad, I've always had a harder time being vulnerable with my dad. And so my dad, I didn't really want to tell him all these things that were going on. I thought that he would just kind of think it's woo-woo and weird. And so I just told him that, I still wasn't really sure, but that I'm thinking about it. And my dad's way of loving me the best, though, was really pushing me. And his idea was kind of just that I'm holding myself back. need to get a job. I need to make money. I need to survive in this world. You know, my parents aren't going to be able to support me forever. They're not going to be around forever. And so he's really, really pushing me to get a job, get a job, get a job, get a job. And yeah, it's his way of loving me the best, is making sure that I'm taken care of. And he's done an amazing job at that my entire life. But the thing is that I felt more confused than ever before. I felt like I was looking at this world differently than ever before. And just in the same way, I felt like the way that I've thought about contributing to society, the way that I've approached it has been totally upside down. I feel like a lot of the things that I've done, the videos that I've made, it's all been about this idea of for lack of a better word, telling people principles that I think will help them in their life. And it's been kind of characterized by this energy of, I know better than you, which is hard for me to admit, but I do think that's where I was kind of coming from. That yeah, I just want to tell you these truths that like are going to change your life, you know? And when I came back from Costa Rica, I was just left thinking like, of course, sharing perspectives is a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. But I think people don't actually need other people telling them what to do. I think people just need love. That's it. I think people need a safe space where they can just be accepted for who they are. And I think that what I feel called to do now is not actually sharing these high and mighty principles, but actually about being vulnerable and opening myself up even when I don't know what's going on. And just speaking from an energy of like, hey, I'm learning to accept myself more for the hard things that it is for me to accept. And maybe invite you to do the same. Because I think that every single person, the world is full of problems, and I think that the answers lie within our true selves. I think every single person has a piece of the solution. And I think that the more that we think that there's something wrong with us the way that we are, the more that we live in a way that's not designed to, I think the more, let me think about how I'm feeling this. I guess what I think the number one thing that our world needs right now is not perfection. It's not more people having it together. It's more people finding peace and joy in their lives, despite their imperfections, despite our brokenness, despite our pain. Because yeah, what I found in Costa Rica is that our pain, it doesn't have to be this thing that we have to run away from, and that makes us isolated, that makes us lonely, that makes us strange. It can actually be this beautiful springboard to form deep, visceral bonds with other human beings. And this was such an interesting way of looking at pain, because I've always viewed pain as a scary thing that I never want to feel. And now in Costa Rica, I was seeing it as the springboard to connect more deeply with other humans. And as weird as it sounds, I liked myself more when I was crying. I still do. I literally cried my eyes out this morning. And I feel more like myself when I'm allowing myself to feel these emotions, and when I'm allowing myself to feel this pain. And the adjective that I would say that it really brings out, that pain invites us into, is it's being gentle. I feel like my pain has taught me to be gentle. And I feel like this gentleness is priceless. So now I'm like, maybe our goal in life shouldn't be about like creating the perfect belief system to minimize the amount of pain. But maybe our goals in life should be about relearning to feel our pain and letting it alchemize change in our life in the same way that winter alchemizes spring. And so I'm like, oh shoot, like how the hell do I do this? Like how the hell do I feel my pain? And for the first month that I was well, I guess for all of May, all of April, I would say I was just hardcore in recovery integration mode, like really unstable, just kind of a mess. And then in May, I had my friend Rick visited me from the Netherlands, which was great. I saw my friend Sawyer. I was hanging out with friends. I was opening myself up a lot more, and my parents told me that they felt like, I still really wasn't doing much, so they wanted me to either have a real job by June 1st, or to be out of the house. That's what my mom and I agreed on as well. And so I decided that at the end of June, that after having all these thoughts about, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm supposed to take this energy that I feel, like this really, really beautiful energy I felt, and I feel like I'm supposed to share it. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to share it with the world. And it's weird because, I know this now looking back, but I was putting so much pressure on myself still to share this energy. I have to share it. I have to share it. I have to share it. I have to. I have to. It's the only way. And I think I was still really governed by this fear of not making money, this fear of, if I were to really put a nail on the head, it would be, I felt like this was my way of getting love, is sharing this light with the world. I think I still felt very resentful at the world that I came back to. Looking at it so differently, I felt resentful that we ever let it get to this place as humans. I felt resentful that we continue to let it be like this for so long. And I felt alone. I felt like I didn't belong in this world that I came home to. And so instead of what I decided the best way to do that was, you know what? I'm just going to fight it. I'm going to tell everyone why the world that we're living in is wrong and why my way of being is the best way. I was like, yeah, here I go. So what I'm going to do is on June 1st, I'm just going to follow whatever feels right. I'm going to spend a ton of savings, and I'm just going to travel. And during this travel, I need to get out. I need to start sharing this light. I need to combat this world that I see. And so I'm just going to go, like, I'm going to do it. Like forcing myself to do it. So June 1st, I left. I left everything, and I was really prepared to be gone. And I was planning to go to Kauai in Hawaii for the whole summer. And this was my way of forcing myself into sharing my light. And boy, this was a horrible, horrible, horrible mistake. I ended up going to Sedona for 4 days. I went to Tulum, Mexico for 10 days. And then I visited my friend Sam, my soul brother Sam, in Breckenridge, Colorado for a few days before going to our friend Garrick's wedding in Bozeman, Montana for a few days. And honestly, the entire trip, I had run-ins with some of the most beautiful people I've ever met. Incredibly awesome human beings. And the entire trip, I was an anxious mess. I was all over the place. All of Sedona, I was feeling some serious anxiety. I was a mess. I felt just so alone. I felt like I didn't really belong anywhere. And then when I got to Tulum, I ended up just having a horrible, horrible, horrible panic attack. Worst one I've ever had. Probably just as bad as the one I had a year ago this time. And during this panic attack, I was just feeling like nothing is real. I felt there's no order to be found anywhere. I felt like I was just perpetually falling, and that I literally felt like I was losing my mind. I felt like I had no control over my thoughts, and I felt like I was going to have a break in reality. Like my awareness was going to split off, and I was just going to check out and become a vegetable. I don't know if that's the politically correct term, but I apologize in advance if it's not. I just felt like my brain was going to be fried, and I was going to have a break in reality. And this was perhaps the scariest feeling I've ever felt, is not feeling like I can trust my own mind. I was supposed to stay in Tulum for just a few days, and I decided to stay longer because I was terrified to get on a plane. And I spent almost every single day alone because I was terrified to go outside. I was down there with my friend Andrew from Costa Rica, who's an incredibly beautiful human being. And there was a ton of other beautiful humans down there. But I just needed to isolate. I needed to be totally alone. And I also felt like when I was down there in Tulum, I was with a spiritual retreat, a spiritual group of people. And these people were so beautiful in their own ways. But there was also something about what they were doing that really didn't resonate with me. I felt like they were kind of approaching spirituality from a place that was so conceptual and less about the heart. And because of this, I again just felt like, I guess, like a big lack of love. And it was affecting the way that I perceived reality, where I just was dissociating. I felt terrified. I felt afraid. And if you know me, you know that I'm a big adventure person. So being down in Tulum, Mexico, I was trying really, really hard to go outside, to go to cenotes, to go to the ruins there. And I remember I went to the ruins one day and it was closed, and I just felt so much anxiety. I called my mom and I said I felt horrible, and I just had to go back home. And yeah, it was just so much darkness, but the only thing that I could do every day was, oh my God, it was just so horrible. Like, yeah, it was just horrible. All I did every day, I did Qigong, which helped. I talked to friends, which helped a lot. Watched lots of Mario Kart. That's my vice. Shout out Gyarados. He's a Mario Kart streamer that I watch. But yeah, I just felt so alone, so isolated. I felt like I was in this foreign country. No one looked like me. Nobody spoke my language. And yeah, I just want to cry thinking about it. It was so difficult. But I was terrified to get on a flight. I thought that I would literally lose my mind if I got on a flight. But eventually I mustered the courage, and I did. Got on a flight, went to go see Sam, and I remember going to see Sam, and just like when I finally got in, we flew out through like a tropical storm, and the turbulence wasn't as bad as it should have been. And shout out to our weather gods, but I really did feel divinely guided with the turbulence not being so bad despite flying through a tropical storm. But yeah, I got through it. It was really hard. I definitely almost broke down multiple times in the airport. And on the plane, I had moments where I had to go to the bathroom and like recenter. It was really, really hard. I also had beautiful humans next to me on both flights who were just like, I consider them my guardian angels at this point, because they were just holding so much love for me, and they had such fun conversation. Gosh, yeah, this is surprisingly difficult to talk about. It's just so hard. And eventually got into Sam, and I felt so good just seeing Sam, being at his place. We had a really nice time together, had a lot of like heart-opening conversations where we were just very vulnerable. I said some things that had been on my mind for a while. And then we went to Garrick's wedding, and that was just so beautiful. I definitely had some moments there too where the same way. I just felt like, what is real? Like, I have no idea what's going on. I feel like I'm in so much pain. I have this latent anxiety. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, the wedding was just so astoundingly beautiful. Dancing just never fails to make me smile and bring me so much happiness. And I started to notice when I was with Garrick and Sam that in the same way that I had been so opened up to feeling all this pain, I started to feel this tremendous amount of love for Sam and for Garrick and for our friend Matt. And I felt just profound amounts of joy dancing, and even just listening to music. I was listening to it in a whole different kind of way. Like just a very, very, very deep, visceral, like, whoa, like this is really, 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 really beautiful. And so it was these little moments that I held on to that really got me through, was just knowing that, oh my God, there's so much beauty out there as well. So eventually after the wedding, I was like, I just need to go home. I decided like, okay, I can't go to Hawaii. I need to go back home. And like, I just need to be home. And I got home, and for the first 2-3 days, I was so mad at myself. I felt like I was not living up to my purpose. I was not living up to my potential. I have so much light and love that I want to share, is what I was saying to myself. Like, why? Like, why are you stopping yourself from doing it? Why are you stopping yourself? And I remember one time I was just talking to myself like this, and I just broke down. I was like, just started crying. I literally couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. I started crying and crying and crying, and I was like, I can't talk to myself like this. Like, I just can't do it. I can't be mean to myself anymore. And yeah, I felt amazing after crying and like coming to that realization. And I also got a handpan when I was away in Sedona. So I started like playing the handpan, and I just started feeling a lot of peace being outside. And yeah, eventually I came home and my parents were very confused. My mom was, I told her what was going on, and she was a lot more understanding. But again, I have a hard time being vulnerable with my dad. So he was a lot more confused. Like, why aren't you doing your thing? You also said you were going to be making videos. Why aren't you making videos? And, you know, how do I tell him all this? That I have been feeling the worst pain, some of the worst pain I felt in my entire life. So yeah, I came home and I felt mad at myself, and I broke down. I can't be mad at myself anymore. And then so I just decided, like, you know what? I'm not going to be mad at myself anymore, and I'm just going to do things that I enjoy every day. Like, I'm not going to focus on saving the world. I'm not going to focus on all these other problems that I felt like need my attention, that I know now that they're just problems that I'm afraid of. I'm just going to focus on what I love. And so I started just getting a good night's sleep every night. I started going out for long walks, started moving my body again, like getting some good workouts in, started hitting up friends, playing soccer with friends. And I remember a few days in, I also during this time started seeing a therapist for the first time since I was 10 years old. And yeah, I don't know how I glossed over this. It was also Mark, my therapist, my friend Makila's dad, who was also just like really, 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 I continued to feel so much love from Mark. And Mark validates everything that I feel, and doesn't think that I'm crazy for feeling like I'm losing my mind. But more than anything, I just feel like Mark loves me so much. And every time I talk to him, I just feel that much more sane. I feel that much more myself. Just like, I feel like every time he's not like, I'm here to fix you. Every time I feel like, man, I'm so happy to be talking with you right now. And I'm like, wow, like this is really nice. And I'm also super privileged that Mark had a similar experience when he was in his 20s, where he just felt like his heart blew wide open. And he also came back to the US and didn't really know what to do about it. He was in Europe. And so we've talked a ton about that. So yeah, he's just been another angel in my life. Who's also helped me with this new approach of like the greatest gift you can ever give another human being is loving them. And it's also the greatest gift that you can give yourself is loving another human. And it's like, whoa, it seems like it's a win-win situation. But yeah, so, you know, I came home talking a lot to Mark, and Mark talked to my dad as well, which I really appreciate because my dad really cooled off. Just letting Mark kind of bridge the gap and let my dad know that, you know, I am okay. Like, I'm having a very hard time, but like, I'm okay. Just okay in the sense that I'm not going to harm myself or anything like that, because I have been that low in the past before. Yeah. So anyway, it was, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just glossing over like a big thing I just said. But yeah, I've definitely been through a lot of pain in my life, which kind of brings me perfectly to the next point, which is that I came back home and for a few days, just like allowing myself to not be hard on myself, just to do every single day what I love, to be present, to smell the trees, go for a walk, call some friends. I felt this peace, like, and being back home, being somewhere comfortable, I felt a peace also like I had never experienced in my entire life. I just felt so like, oh my God, it was insane. I just felt like everything is okay. Like everything is okay. But really, like everything is okay. Not like, oh, everything's okay right now. Like everything always has been and always will be okay is the kind of peace that I felt. Just not being hard on myself and allowing myself to feel and just be in nature. Whenever I was in nature, I would almost like, I would just get emotional just thinking about how beautiful the trees are and the grass and how lucky I am to be alive in this beautiful world. So that was the beginning of July that I was feeling like that. And yeah, I was still just like, man, I just need to focus on one day at a time. And eventually the pressure kind of started to build back up again. Yeah, and I've kind of found myself in this place. Well, there's one more thing that I'll say before I bring us full circle to where I am now, which is that I felt this peace, and I felt from this peace that it's like, oh my gosh, I need to be creative, like express this energy. And then I'd put pressure on myself again. And from this pressure on myself, I would just be so sad and life would start to feel numb and I would be in my head all the time. And then I would break down again, which is exactly what happened last weekend. I felt such shocking amounts of pain that I just broke down and I started bawling, crying in front of my mom. And it was all the pressure on myself, but I also realized that when I started crying to her that I've also just been totally isolating myself, that I have this deep craving for community and for belonging. And I was surrounded for a week with this amazing tribe of humans who I felt saw me and loved me so unconditionally. And to have that just grabbed from under my feet was bringing me this deep sadness. It's like I was only home for a week and now I'm back home and I feel like I'm not home. And that's not to say that I don't love my dad and that I don't love my mom, because I do. I just feel like I kind of came back to all the walls that we all put up. And yeah, so crying in front of her felt amazing because I felt like I took all the walls down and she just loved me so much, so unconditionally anyway. And she was there for me. Yeah, and I literally was just just thinking about how much my mom loves me is amazing. And I think that we have a hard time really showing it for each other more often. For whatever reason. So, yeah, after I had this crying, I felt amazing that day. And I reached out to a ton of friends and family, just asked them how they were doing. Got so much love in return. And was just reminded of how loved I am. And that kind of brings me to where I am now. So I started working a job running the social media for this climbing gym called Climb Cincy. It's a part-time job, and I figured I want to start doing something. And it's part of the deal with my mom getting a job. I also just felt a weight off the shoulders getting this part-time job, and it's also in a field that I love, which is community and making videos. And the Rockwall community is by far the most wholesome community on a large scale that I've ever been a part of. I just feel like it's a hub for wholesome humans. Yeah, I love the climbing community. So it was such an awesome job to get. But it's brought me to this position now where after having this moment last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, where my heart just got blown wide open. Again, it kind of closed off. And I'm not really sure why I closed myself off again. And I could feel that I was closed off, and I feel so much pain when I feel closed off. And so I cried this morning again. And again, I feel opened up. And I realized this morning when I was crying that this brings me to where I am now, which is that I feel grateful to have this job running Climb Cincy. And I still feel like a bit of an imposter in this world right now. And I think the hopeful approach on it is that I feel pain from buying into a world where we don't love each other, where we're kind of all just being superficial. And when I say we're being superficial, I'm not saying you have to walk up to another human being and start crying or tell them your life story. We don't need to tell someone our life story to be vulnerable with someone and to truly listen. And I think I have a deep craving for belonging, for community. And I think that there is so much more pain that I've been through than I give myself credit for. Because when I cried this morning, I was just crying at the thought of doing a trust fall and having other humans catch me. And I was crying at the thought of, I was also crying at the thought of my ego, these thoughts in my head that can just drive me crazy. And I thought about how my ego for so long, I saw this vision of my ego bowing when I asked it to step aside, because I feel like it keeps me from feeling. It keeps me from being this person that is gentle, that is open, that is loving. I feel like my ego is kind of perpetuates my walls. And when I asked my ego to step aside, my ego bowed. I should be more clear. I was closing my eyes. I was lying on my bed listening to music. And yeah, I just wanted to feel my emotions. And yeah, I asked my ego to step aside. It bowed. And that I started crying so hard as well. Because I feel like my ego is here, not for no reason. I feel like it's here to protect me. Because all this pain that I've been through in my life that I don't think I nearly give myself enough credit for. Credit's a strange way to describe it. I don't acknowledge it enough. I have a really big heart, and I feel like my heart has carried so much pain with it for so long. And I think instead of giving myself the time and space and grace to feel it, my mind just wants to rush and, beat the world that I feel like has brought me so much pain. Like, change the world that I feel like has brought me so much pain. And I don't want to change the world anymore. I don't. I just want to fall in love with it the way that it is. And this can sound very counterintuitive. Like, why would you not want to change the world that's brought all of us so much pain? And it was in this vision of my ego today that it kind of is clicking for me that I think all of us have created this world the way that it is, not because we want it to be this way, but because we're protecting ourselves. I think we got a situation going on like that one parable. It's like the Emperor's New Clothes, where that emperor, the whole town walks outside and the emperor's naked, but he says that he's wearing a new outfit. And so basically, like, someone has convinced him that the clothes that he's wearing are invisible, but it's the best outfit. And he's walking outside like he's wearing these new clothes, and that other people are looking at his outfit. And that little kid says, "He's not wearing clothes. He's naked." And everybody goes, "Shh." I think we have one of those situations going on in our society today, where we all are just agreeing to this reality that nobody actually wants, that nobody's actually perceiving. But we all just agree to it because we think that that's what we need to do to belong. And I think that's what I've been doing as well, is I think by resenting this world, that's also been an attempt for me to get love, for me to belong, for me to fit in with other people who also need to change the world. Us angry youth, as our elders say. And I do think that we have every right to be angry, and I think it would be so weird if we weren't angry at this world that we've been given, because there is just so much pain. There's so much things that just feel so upside down. And just like I did in Costa Rica, I kind of just am at the point where I want to feel this pain and I want to let it go. Because it's nobody's fault. I know as well as anyone, when I am in a place where I'm feeling pain, I start treating my mom like I don't want to treat her. I start being closed off towards my mom. I start being judgmental towards my friends. I start not listening and just wanting to impress other people instead of actually wanting to just engage in human conversation. And so I know it as well as anyone. So, yeah. So I guess why I am recording this podcast now, kind of on the theme of I don't really know exactly where to go from here. Yeah, I feel like the only thing that I feel like right now is just that in this time, being courageously vulnerable is one of my greatest gifts. And so, yeah, that's what I'm just going to keep doing. And I think there's definitely a certain degree of, if I'm courageously vulnerable, that actually, no, I don't even want to play that game. I just want to be vulnerable for its own sake. And yeah, I've just felt so emotional roller coastery lately, like still trying to process everything, still trying just to find happiness in day-to-day life, that I've kind of just gone down to the basics, like what brings me joy every day? What brings me joy? I don't have the capacity to do the big picture energy. I don't have the capacity to ruminate too much on the past. I just want to learn to open up my heart and to follow it. In spite of everything. So, yeah, this is what my attempt is here, coming on this podcast and updating you guys. It's just bearing my heart, and I hope that, yeah, listening to this, that it can inspire you to be vulnerable with yourself and honest with yourself. I think that it's our emotions that are superpowers on both sides of the spectrum. And it's really fear that sucks the most. Yeah, it really is fear that sucks the most. I think it's fear that keeps us in these prisons. And I'm just as afraid as you guys. So there's so many things to be freaked out about. But I really do think that when we hold on to each other, when we're connected to each other, that we're kind of presented with another way that reality can look. Because fear thrives in isolation. And I think that all of us have been very isolated, whether that's from a true sense of belonging, whether that's from our true selves, because we just live our whole lives in our head, whether that's from our beautiful ecosystem, because when we're outside, we don't really connect to the flowers and the trees and the grass, because we're also just kind of thinking thoughts. So anyway, I'm kind of getting on a tangent. To sum everything up, I feel like the greatest gift in my life is to be able to feel and to be courageously vulnerable. And in day-to-day life, I just want to keep leaning into that. And sharing from the space. I feel like I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm rambling, which usually means it's about time to wrap it up. But yeah, I just want to send you guys all the love in the world. If you have listened this far, I really, really appreciate you listening to what's been going on to me. If you want to talk about anything that I said on this podcast, I would absolutely love talking with any of you about it. I think we need each other more than ever before. Which is a beautiful time to be alive. Now is not the time when I think that we're just in a winter. We're in a winter as a society, and the winter is the prerequisite for the spring. And right now, the spring, it's manifesting in the things that we want to change. And it's manifesting in the way that we're tired of the way that we've been showing up in the world, and we want to show up in a new way. That's the spring. So I don't really know what's going to happen with everything. But I trust that together we can get through anything. So, all right. I really am going to wrap it up now. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have such a lovely rest of your day.